Okay, welcome back to another episode of Third and 23. I'm your host, Alex, here to talk my 2024 SEC preview. So I've given you guys the first three conferences were ACC, Big 10, and Big 12. I'm going to finish it up with the last P4 conference of the SEC, give you my standings on how I think the regular season standings are going to play out. And then I've got, as you can see on the screen, I've got their odds to win the conference championship if you're interested in doing a future on an SEC conference champion winner. So let's start at the bottom with LSU. LSU, I'll put it out there now. Uh, I had this spot kind of back and forth between LSU and Florida. If you guys watch my over under wins video, I think Florida's going to be better than what a lot of people out there think. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually beat LSU in the regular season. So keep that in mind. But you got to LSU, you got to give it up to Brian Kelly. He's done this for a long time. He knows what he's doing. Even though he's got to replace Jaden Daniels at quarterback, the Heisman Trophy winner. He's got to replace Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas outside. I mean, they got a lot of guys they got to replace at LSU. They got to replace Logan Diggs, the running back who transferred out. But with that said, I think that you're going to see their defense make a big jump than they did from last year. Last year, LSU was one of the worst defenses in the SEC, actually one of the worst in the country. But I think a lot of guys coming back like Harold Perkins, one of the best defensive players in the country, Greg Penn, Whit Weeks. You got Zy Alexander is back at corner. He transferred in last year. He was up and down. I think he's going to settle into that number one corner role and look a lot better. So I think you're going to see the DC change also. So you're going to see a major improvement on the defensive side of the ball for LSU to kind of help carry the new QB Nussmeier and those guys on offense. You got Kyron Lacy still back on the outside. I think he's an NFL receiver himself. He decided to stay for his COVID year to kind of get that NFL buzz going that he didn't get a chance with Neighbors and Thomas outside. So I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see Kelly really kind of cook something up, I guess you could say, coaching wise, to get LSU into the top half of the SEC this year. Moving on to Missouri, I was kind of surprised to see Missouri as a plus 1800. Um, I guess could understand it if you make it to the SEC title game. I don't think they would actually win the game if they were in the title game. But Missouri is well known as having the easiest schedule in the SEC this year. I mean, it's cake. They could sleepwalk through it and win 10 games. You got Brady Cook back at quarterback. You've got Luther Burden back at receiver, maybe the best player in the country. I don't know, but definitely he's in that conversation. But you also got Mookie Cooper back. You got Theo Weiss back at receiver. This offense is going to be completely explosive. They lost some guys defensively, so that's a side of the ball that they're going to have some concerns. And they've actually been pretty good on the defensive side of the ball for years. So I think you're going to see a step back this year that maybe Missouri fans aren't really used to. But that offense is too explosive to keep Ellis or to keep Missouri out of the top five. And I think they have a real chance of making the college football playoff because of that easy schedule and how great their offense is going to be. Alabama, Nick Saban era is finally over. I think he ended it a year too early because I think Alabama had a squad this season. If guys didn't transfer out because he left, I'd have Alabama much higher on this list. But Kalen DeBoer comes in from Washington after leading the Huskies uh, to the national title game. And what has he got? He's got an X factor at quarterback and Jalen Milroe. Milroe started off slow last year with his passing, but he started to come along as the season was going on. Running, throwing. This guy could be in the Heisman discussion. They lost some guys to transfer, though, as I said earlier. So some receivers transferred out, some running backs transferred out. So he's going to have to carry the load on offense early on. He's got that kind of ability, though. I mean, the guy's a real weapon on that side of the ball. And then defensively, they got some studs. Malachi Morris shocked me coming back to school. That's an all SEC safety nickelback type. You've got Deontay Lawson, Jihad Campbell at linebacker, Tim Smith using his COVID year coming back. Bama's got some dudes up front on both lines of scrimmage. So you're gonna see you're not gonna see Alabama go away. They're still gonna be a pretty strong team, and the odds makers believe it with this plus 320. So they have them as one of the favorites to win the SEC this year in Kalen DeBoer's first year. Go to Texas. Texas has been in the news lately for some injury issues. They lost their starting running back C.J. Baxter. They lost a freshman who came in who would have been part of the depth there. Something to consider with Texas is they're down to three scholarship running backs. Now Jaden Blue is going to be the starter, and he's a pretty good running back, really good open field moves. But man, he's got to carry the load on his own this season now with all these injuries they're having. So keep that in mind. But they still have Quinn Ewers back at quarterback, probably going to be in New York City for the Heisman. I'm not the biggest Quinn Ewers guy when it comes to NFL potential. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. But as far as college, he's a good college quarterback. He's a senior. You know, you're gonna see him play like that. And then they had a lot of guys transfer in: Amari Niblack, um, Isaiah Bond. I'm missing some guys. Well, they had some guys transfer in from other schools to give him some weapons to work with because he lost the receiving core from last year. So offensively, and Steve Sarkisian, he knows what he's doing on offense. So they're offensively, they're still going to look good. Defensively, they lose Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy up front. Two major losses. I was thinking, man, Texas is going to slide now because of them, but not because of them being gone, but not really. Yeah, Vernon Broughton back. Alfred Collins using his COVID year. He's back up front. Barron Sorrell is back on the edge. Ethan Burke back on the edge. They went and got a big time transfer, Trey Moore, coming in from the mid majors to transfer in. He brings heat off the edge. So and they got some other guys in the secondary and at lineman. Anthony Hill had a great freshman year last year at linebacker, so you're going to see him step up and look like an up and coming star. So they got a lot of guys defensively. So I don't think this Longhorns defense is going away. I think they're going to be very good and good enough to complement the Texas offense, which is going to be pretty explosive this year. Now you take a look at Georgia. Georgia, if you see the plus 190, Vegas has them as the favorite to win the SEC, and a lot of people are picking them to win the SEC as well. I've got Georgia as one of my two teams in the SEC title game. You got Carson Beck, top quarterback in the country, maybe Heisman ceremony for sure. I don't know if I would pick him to win. I'd probably pick Dylan Gabriel to win it, but definitely in New York City for the Heisman. You lose Brock Bowers, but you got Oscar Delp back at tight end. He's shown flashes the last 2 years that he's going to be that guy at tight end. They get Ben Urasek to transfer him from Stanford. Most people don't even know who that is. 2 years ago, this guy was a pretty good tight end at Stanford. Last year, injury issues, so you don't even know who he is. But keep in mind, Urasek and Delp are going to be a really good tight end tandem at Georgia. They got some guys at outside still, like Dominic Levet. They had Colby Young transferring from Miami, a big target for Georgia for Carson Beck to have on the outside. So you're looking at I think you're looking at a really good passing offense for the Georgia Bulldogs. And in the running game, they get Trevor Etienne, a transfer from Florida, probably the best running back in the SEC in my opinion. Sorry for all those pings; it's going crazy right now, but probably the best running back in the SEC in my opinion. Another explosive playmaker on the Georgia Bulldog offense. So these guys have everything you need to be one of the higher scoring teams in the SEC. They're great in the trenches, both offensive line and then on the defensive line. Mikael Williams, in my opinion, maybe the best overall player in the country. Could go number one. Probably won't go number one because people are, they might hate on him because of his position, kind of like a defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, edge, kind of hybrid. He can do it all though. I do really like Kentucky's defensive tackle. The name's escaping me right now. I just had it on the tip of my tongue. But Mikael Williams is serious business outside. You've got other guys like Smell London back at linebacker. You got Malachi Starks, an All-American safety back there. Concern is at corner. They lost some guys at corner. Dalen Everett is their top corner. Man, he was getting cooked up last year, so that's a concern. He's got to make a big step forward this year to really shore up that position for Georgia. So keep a lookout for that. But I still think Georgia is one of the best teams in the country, one of the best teams in the SEC, and I see them in the SEC title game. And they're going to play Ole Miss. I got Ole Miss finishing first in regular season standings over Georgia, and that more had to do with schedule more than anything else. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish tied with the same record. I don't think either team will go undefeated. I can see both finishing the regular season 11-1. But Ole Miss, Jackson Dart's back at quarterback. Another guy could be in the Heisman. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this conference that could be in New York City for the Heisman. Then you've got Trey Harris, who I thought was going to leave early. He did not. He came back to school. They got Watkins also back at receiver using his COVID year. They got all these weapons back at receiver. At running back, he loses Quinshawn Judkins, but he brings in LSU's running back Logan Diggs, who's pretty good running back in his own right. Ulysses Bentley was really explosive last year, and I don't think a lot of people knew about him. So you got both of those guys back at running back with Dart and those receivers, and with Lane Kiffin calling the plays. Again, another high scoring, high octane offense that you're going to see in the SEC. Defense has always been their issue. They're not the strongest defense out there. They went and got Princely Umalayan from Florida. Great edge rusher, one of the best pass rushers in the SEC. They went and got Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Texas A&M, a big time recruit a few years ago who's coming into his own. He should be a really good addition for Ole Miss. Defensively, they're still not going to be there, but they're going to be a little better than they have been in previous years and good enough to complement one of the best offenses in the country. So now I got Ole Miss versus Georgia. Who do I think is going to win the SEC? Well, no surprise here. I'm going with what everybody else is picking. I'm going with the Georgia Bulldogs. I think they are one of the best teams in the country. You can make the argument they are the best team in the country. College football playoff, I think they're going to be the 2 seed. By the way, I could see 5 of these teams, the top 5 of these teams making the college football playoff. So it's top heavy in the SEC this year, as it is pretty much every year. But yeah, I like the Georgia Bulldogs to win the SEC. So that wraps up my SEC preview. I'll have a college football playoff preview in a few days, so you guys can see if you want to do futures on national championship winner. And also, we got a game next Saturday, Florida State, Georgia Tech. That is a game that I'm going to have a video on. So that'll be my first game of the 2024 season when it comes to when it comes to my ATS win-loss record. If you guys want to follow along and do the same bets I do. So that said, that pretty much wraps up this video. If you like the content, please like, follow, subscribe, as you're going to see my YouTube handle here in a few seconds. Take care.